Hey, it's me, Stony, and welcome to the Small Blast podcast. I'm joined as always by Matt,
Ahoy!
Welshy, oh, the humanity, and not me. See you later, boys.
See you, Stony. Well, first of all, what's been your hobby progress?
I've been doing quite a bit actually for the first time in a while. Me and Stony have actually been working on this terrain piece. I'm not sure we've
Yeah,
mentioned it
yeah.
much. It's got like we bought one of those holograph projectors. It's kind of like a spinning LED so that it looks like it's light in 3D space. So it's pretty cool. So Stony kind of started off making this terrain piece. It's like a big kind of judgment throne with a kind of corpse grinder at the front and a kind of dodgy heretical guy sat in front of the screen. So he's programmed
Nice.
in some chaosy bits on the screen, and I'm painting it up. Well, finishing off some of the conversions, tidying a few bits up, smoothing out a few bits of milliput, and then painting them up. So I've been working on this cool little three-faced servitor who's like writing a book. He's like keeping a ledger of all the people
Oh,
that have
cool.
been killed in the judgment throne, but he's got like three faces. So yeah, it's been pretty fun. What about you? You've been busy in the Warhammer workshop?
I've actually been doing a bit more as well, actually. I've seemed to have started quite a few projects. But I've
Inspired by Iron Skull, you've come back
I
and
think
started seven
yeah,
things to
yeah,
finish for next year's Iron Skull.
yeah. I and all really varied. Like I've built a Black Templar with some Bretonian bits thrown in.
Okay.
Um
What Bretonnian bits like banners and lance? It'd be cool to see a
no,
space marine with a lance.
so that's quite a fun idea. But no, the head. So it's sort of inspired by the new artwork that we were talking about in the previous episode.
Oh, so you've given him a head that's
He's
three
got a
sizes too
classic.
small.
No, no, it's not. It
Uh,
looks well proportioned on the Space Marine. It looks and a load of like banners and paperwork and stuff. But the head is, it's got like a classic peasant haircut,
oh,
like
the bowl cut.
the bowl cut.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Alan de Bowl.
yeah, and actually. I was looking at the kit, and they're from the Bretonian kit, and they're purity seals. They're essentially purity seals. They've got a shield and paper. So the shield you can paint as wax. So they're from the Bretonian kit. And then I noticed on an Empire model that I nearly started painting, but I didn't. Really, its model is like 30 years old, and he's got purity seals, like actual purity seals on it from Fantasy. Um,
Wow. Okay.
and I noticed purity seals somewhere else as well. Yeah. So
Well, if you're enjoying this high
yeah, you need
level
to listen
podcasting
to
chat, listen to
the
the full
100th
Purity
episode.
Seal episode.
The and I converted four Empire handgunners into like because they're really old, but they're like um there's three versions of the handgunner and that's it, and they're
Yeah.
just set solid lump of plastic. So converting them up to make them a bit different. And the characters that we bought at Iron Skull and
Oh, nice. Are
tomorrow.
you starting that diorama, are you?
Well,
There'll
no,
be a video on that at
tomorrow I
some
need to
point.
get the Dremel out in the day because that's something I can't really use in the evening. Yeah, I'm gonna cut the scouts out. I think I know what I'm doing for that. Have you started yours?
So remember, I bought that
Yeah. The
Battlefleet
Tyranid thing.
Gothic
Yeah.
Tyranid ship, which is essentially just a solid
Yeah,
lump that
I haven't
doesn't
I
fit
haven't
together
seen that
properly.
video yet. So
I
that's
did
on
my
YouTube.
best to I added in a few more modern pieces, made it look a bit more lively, but then it
What,
didn't
like
work too well in
squid,
my color scheme.
like
Yeah, I've
insect
added
stuff?
some
Oh,
like
cool.
squid bits, so it looks
Yeah,
like it's
cool.
actually flying through
Yeah,
space, but
yeah,
I don't think my Tyranid color scheme's that kind of really bright blue and green, which works nicely for aliens on the board, but I'm not sure it works that well for the Battlefleet. But it's always nice restoring an old model that would never see the light of day otherwise. And I
yeah,
looked it up actually. We weren't sure at the time whether it was official or not. Well,
yeah.
it turns out that it was actually produced by something called Fnatic Games,
Yeah, that
which was a
rings a bell.
really short run subsidiary of GW.
Didn't they have a
So
mag? They used to have a magazine and
they
stuff.
did,
Yeah.
yeah. So they took over like magazine production for loads of the side games. They had a Battlefleet Gothic one, there was a
All right.
Gorka Morka one, there was a Necromunda and an
Right.
Epic one. And
Right.
for a very, very short few years, they produced some models for Games Workshop. So even though it's
I didn't know
produced
they
by them,
made.
it still had GW carved in it, like all of the old
Okay.
bits and bobs. So
All right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it turns out it is a genuine thing, but it's just one of those weird side companies.
I seem to remember it when White Dwarf was just so full of, you'd get like a page on one game system and then there'd be another page on another game system. There's almost like too many things to fit in a magazine. And if
Yeah.
you think about what's left from there, from that point, like 20 years ago or whatever, when they had all of those game systems, the only thing
Mm.
left is Battlefleet Gothic and Inquisitor. Like they
Yeah,
brought
and
everything
Inquisitor's just
else
got like a
back.
computerized reboot, so I doubt we'll see.
Oh,
So it's
yeah.
got to be Battlefleet Gothic next. Did you see there was a full set going on eBay? I'm always keeping my eye out for an
A
original set.
starter set.
It was the starter set plus like 20 other blister packs and a Blackstone
How much was
Fortress,
that
the
going for?
metal Blackstone
Yeah.
Fortress. Well, when I saw it, you know how eBay gets you. It was 90 quid, and I was like, "Oh my
Okay.
God!" When I checked today, it had got up to 300, so I pulled
Yeah.
myself out of there. But
Yeah. Well,
some lucky guy has basically just bought every ship available, including a Blackstone Fortress for Battlefleet. So fair
yeah.
play.
Nice.
Well, it's a small blast, Matt, so I don't think we should spend too long on the news. And I've only seen one thing, and that was this really weird video call preview for a preview. Did you watch that?
You're right though.
Did
It
you
was
have any
it's a
ideas?
preview of a preview. Well,
I know, and we're talking about it, so
yeah.
jokes on us, Metaverse.
I wondered, I was trying to look in the background, see if there's anything further, any more depth to it than the hats. Were the hats a distraction? I don't know. I
Hmm.
mean, what were there? There was a bowler hat, a cone,
Yeah,
traffic cone,
some big like
Egyptian
top hats.
headdress,
There was an Egyptian
top
thing.
hat, yeah.
But I think
A
so. The
pirate
first one that
hat.
was definite was a cap with the Death Watch symbol on. So I mean,
Oh, yeah, I
that's
saw,
got
yeah,
to
the
be
symbol, yeah.
straight up
Well,
confirmed Death Watch kill team, right?
yeah, and I did see a comment
Yeah,
that I thought was interesting, which is Corsair pirates.
yeah, because there was a pirate hat, wasn't there?
Yeah,
So some
yeah.
people were saying pirates, but I think
Harlequin.
Harlequins because of the Jester hat. I think we could be in for another. Like, hopefully, Kill Team can bring
Yeah.
us back on board
It's
with a
I
Death Watch versus Harlequin set.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
Okay, so Matt, it's a small blast podcast. We've got no Stony, so I think we decided last minute to talk about the true humans of the 40,000 universe, the ones that aren't part of the Imperial, the race traitors, as the Emperor would have you believe. I'm talking about the
hmm.
humans that are involved in other factions. So, do you want to kick us off with maybe the most well-known ones?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I kind of want to hypothesize. We were talking and I kind of thought like what would a non-imperial aligned, non-chaos aligned human civilization look like in 40K? Maybe we'll touch on that in the end, but then we kind of got talking about the actual humans and when I think of humans that aren't within the imperial fold, I always think of the Tau auxiliaries or the
Hmm.
Guvesa, if that's how you say it in Tau language,
I
which
reckon it should say Guvesa. I think it might be. It's
Guvesa,
probably like Guvesa.
Guadaha.
But without getting too racist with it.
Yeah,
But I like Guvesa or the
Guvesa,
Guvazes.
Guva, yeah,
Yeah,
Guvez, which translates as human helper. Um, so they're Guvesa auxiliaries, which are basically human populations that have willingly, mostly willingly actually, turned over to the greater good. So there's planets that have slowly been not incorporated, but they've just slowly fallen into the influences of the Tau Empire and have their imperial grip has loosened through
yeah,
trade, through mostly through trade, but the ethereal caste does seek to actively integrate some of this human population into the Tau Empire as a means of taking more territory and weakening the strength of the Imperium on the eastern fringes. So it's
Yeah.
kind of an active policy of the Tau
Well,
Empire
it
to
makes sense
incorporate.
because they're certainly the least xenophobic of all of the factions, the
Yeah,
Tau. I mean, they
yeah,
actively have other races that you can play on the board,
yeah,
so it makes sense that they try and bring humans into the fold.
yeah. I think so. Um, and the rereading it a bit. I hadn't really realised that there's been a bit of lore written about this. But in the Damocles Gulf Crusade, which was basically just after the Imperium discovered the Tau Empire, um, the Imperium were trying to contain the Tau Empire, trying to retake some planets that they'd taken from the Imperium. And they had this long grinding campaign in these planetary systems. And then the first Tyranid formations started appearing on the other side of the galaxy. So is that Behemoth? I think that's Behemoth. Is that the first one?
Over that side, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends what whose
Okay.
article you're reading, but
All right.
yeah.
Well, let's just say it's the first one. Anyway, it doesn't matter because it took all the intention of the Imperium as it would,
Mm.
and essentially the Imperium decide to end the Damocles Gulf Crusade and divert all of or most of the military forces to try to contain the Tyranids. And in doing so, they leave large formations of Imperial Guard all over
Yeah,
these planets and star systems, uh, left in a position of weakness
yeah,
because
and probably
lots of the
no
other
food.
forces,
Fuck you
yeah,
guys, you're
yeah,
expendable.
no fleet. The fleets fucked off and left them all on planet
Yeah.
side, and
Then a friendly camel man comes along and
yeah,
offers you a scrap to eat. You might think
exactly. So
differently.
and a lot of them do. There is some resistance, and I an account of a planet that for 200 years the Imperium, the human population on this planet, had a guerrilla campaign against the Tau Empire. Some of the humans had decided that they would throw in their lot with the Tau, um, but there was for 200 years a human population that actively fought against Tau control. Didn't say what
Yeah.
happened in the end, but there were large formations of Imperial Guard that were offered by Commander Farsight the offer to continue fighting or to join the
Mm.
Tau Empire, and a lot of them decided to join. Um, and it kind I remember White Dwarf articles, and people had painted like converted Cadian models into um, Tau Fire Warrior color schemes.
Oh, right. All like red
Sometimes
to go with Farsight and stuff.
no, well, no, the classic yellow, like the
Okay.
classic fire. Is it the Firecast? It is the Firecast,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
The Firecast
That's
color
like
scheme.
a Tau light ochre. I think they've named the paint
Yeah,
after it
yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah. Where they typically they continue to use human weapons. They do in times of war. They are allowed to use Tau weapons, and it's hard to tell in the writing if the insinuation is that the human population is shown propaganda videos of humans living in nice houses. Whether it's hard to tell whether that's the insinuation
Yeah,
is
I
that it's
reckon they
propaganda
definitely are. I mean, that's the
or
whole
whether that's the
Tau
truth.
vibe. That's the whole Tau vibe.
What propaganda?
It's the yeah, it's the it's the fake supermarket, North Korea.
Mate,
Come live here, everything's
yeah,
fine. Don't worry about those dodgy ethereals.
yeah, I was reading it thinking about like the Nazi German propaganda with like all the death camps.
Oh no, it's
But
nothing
yeah,
gonna
but
be
I
anything like
suppose
that.
North Korea is maybe a better,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But because they are the Tau Empire show, and there is propaganda that is actively produced by the Tau Empire to show these planets that are on the edge of Tau space the
Mm.
benefits of joining the Tau Empire. There are
I think to be fair
supposedly
though, the benefits aren't the same as North Korea. They probably are quite nice places to live if you've lived in an imperial hive city.
yeah, assuming that they don't go to like they're not deliberately killed. Yeah,
Yeah, they're
yeah.
not just raised and
Well,
sent to a war zone.
that's the thing. Reading about it, like yeah, they say that the Tau, there's more respect for life in the Tau Empire than the Imperium.
Yeah.
You can be a low life to be a lowlife in the Tau Empire is better than being a lowlife in the Imperium. Um,
Yeah.
and that's
I guess the
appealing.
jobs you can do are quite restrictive though, because like an average dude is about the same size as an average
And
Tau,
they are
but
the
they've got their
human,
like pilots and stuff with really long arms and legs, so
yeah,
you ain't gonna
but
fit in like a plane.
they do restrict what the humans can do. So they restrict what they can make, but it's not really that different to the Imperium, to be honest. But they typically are armed with las guns, and they make their own version of las guns. But they will sometimes be given Tau weapons in time of war, as I've said.
It'd be
Um,
a really cool kill team.
yeah,
Just talking
it
about
would,
kill team
it
earlier
would,
for them to release that
it would.
because they've done Vespid and they've done Crew. It would be cool to see Goo Vasers.
Yeah. Well, and so I'm sure I remember, like I said, the White Dwarf articles and some rules, but I actually found the rules in the Taurus book, that the Volume 3 Imperial Armor, the Taurus campaign. This is a planet that falls to the Tau Empire. And there's a rule in here. I'm not gonna be able to find it now, but there's a rule in here that affect Imperial units. So if you so there's a data slate in this old book basically for using in your Tau army squads of humans. And there's like special rules where um if you're fighting other Imperial units, an enemy Imperial army, they react and
Because they're like,
like
oh, those guys seem to be well
no,
fed and
no,
well
no,
treated and
no,
not
no, the
rad poisoned.
opposite. They're like,
Oh,
those guys are Xenos traitors. So
traitors.
it's like the
What have
Tyranids.
you
You
been
remember
doing
when
with
the
that forehead hole?
yeah, remember when the rules for the Tyranids used to be that they, if they went out of synapse, they'd like charge at the nearest thing and stuff like that. I think the rules are similar to that. So Imperial
Yeah, just
units
get rage.
nearby just go yeah, they go full on raged. Whereas the the thing that I couldn't remember, and it was quite interesting rereading, was that the human populations, because they've for the most part they've either been left by the Imperium or they've kind of actively joined the Tau Empire, in some cases slowly over generations. They don't they don't have any ill will towards the Imperium, and the Tau actually allow them to keep some of the religious aspects. So they still believe in the God Emperor. They're not forced to believe, like to leave that behind and believe in the greater good. And one of the things that is the benefit of being in the Tau Empire is they do have a freedom of religion. Didn't say what the Tau do when some of the humans fall to chaos,
Yeah,
or
that's
maybe,
true.
or maybe they. I mean, they must
Maybe
still
they
fall
don't
to
because they're just
chaos.
so happy,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
just
But
having such a great time.
they must still fall to chaos. But they're allowed to retain the imperial religion, but they do take away the elements of xenophobia for
Yeah.
obvious
Well,
reasons.
that makes sense, but also you can imagine the like religion changing over the time. You know, like those idiots in
Yes.
America that think people walked around with dinosaurs. You
Yeah,
can
yeah,
imagine them like starting to tell themselves that the Tau must have been designed by the Emperor as like a
yeah,
practice
yeah,
non-psychic,
yeah. The
race, and
other
now we've found them. We're the ones actually saving them.
Yeah.
You know.
The other thing that I kind of thought, again, with this idea of a non-imperial aligned human civilization in 40K, like, could that be possible? And in a way, because of the power of chaos and how all of the human emotions will lead people to fall into chaos without even deliberately actively seeking out chaos. Um, it maybe in a way, the Tao allowing people to retain that religious aspect and belief in the God Emperor actually is a form of defense to hold that human
Mm.
population away from falling into chaos, if that makes sense, because
Yeah.
they retain that
And
link.
environmental things do that as well. I wanted to do a full episode of this, so we'll save this for a full episode at some point. But a lot of the planets that the Great Crusade rediscovers, where they are human planets that had no knowledge really of the Emperor, that have formed their own ways of living. Like
Yeah,
after Dark Knight, like some of them are really high tech. Some of them, like
yeah,
the ones on Caliban, are basically like Arthurian knights. Like
yeah,
there is a possibility, I suppose, that some planets haven't yet been found. Some of the ones in the weird reaches of space that,
yeah,
don't even know the Emperor exists. And it'd
yeah,
be interesting to see what they're like.
yeah. I kind of 30K and pre 30K in the Great Crusade, it's kind of easier to imagine those human populations being able to survive in
Yeah,
a galaxy that's kind of less tainted by chaos. But now in 40K, it's kind of harder to believe that there are human populations that aren't, the galaxy is pretty screwed and it's screwed over by
yeah.
chaos.
It's
It's hard
definitely
to
the
see that
protection thing.
influence.
I mean, that's why you get like the White Scars on Chagoris are all like warp wielders because they have like the weather magic of
Mm,
Chagoris, and Fenris has the
yeah,
like Fenris like some kind of weird soul of the planet type
yeah,
thing. So
yeah.
there's definitely areas of natural protection. You could have landed on an area that's covered in like Noctilith, and you're not going to get any warp shit
Well,
going on,
yeah,
like Cadia
yeah,
essentially was.
that, yeah. If you somewhere around Cadia or some maybe would a Necron world help? That
Yeah,
would
well, I
help,
mean,
wouldn't it?
that's the
Maybe.
question that the pylons on Cadia are they
Yeah, yeah.
Necron? Although, to be honest,
Um,
Cadia is where Lorgar goes and witnesses the crazy people because it's so close to the Eye of Terror. But
yeah.
maybe Cadia is
More
not the
more
best
about
example.
Lorgar later.
Yeah, yeah, that
Um,
will be the next full episode.
yeah, yeah,
Rolling in my 6-4.
Matt, I was looking at like other races though.
yeah.
You know,
Other
like
human races.
where have we found humans in other places? And the easiest example is Votan because I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure there's
yeah,
some inquisitors that would argue they're not human, but we're all for equal rights for the smaller people here. So let's say Votan are human to start with. But they are interesting because they also trade with the Tau, right? They've got loads of
yeah,
Tau bits on their
yeah,
guns.
yeah,
Um, but I was thinking the more extreme examples that they've been over the years were the Orcs, which is fun because I get to mention them, my favorite
What
game ever for the second time today.
the
Gorka
human
Morka,
slaves?
the human
Yeah.
slaves,
Oh
the
yeah,
digger
because you could
knobs.
use them. Yeah,
They had
yeah,
models and everything.
yeah,
So they were like they were some of the expansion packs to the Gorka Morka game, which was essentially Mario Kart Orc, where you
yeah.
just raced two orcs together and you could get these kind of gangers to go on the back, and they were orc slaves, so they're humans that had been captured by orcs and put to work, and they kind of, in that humorous orc way, get Stockholm syndrome, and they start painting themselves green to try and like make themselves fit in a bit more, because no one wants to be spotted as the outstander, because you know
Mm.
they'll probably just get thumped and killed by the orcs, but. They were really cool models. I've got a couple actually. There'll be a short on them at some point this year. Um, but yeah, that was fun, I thought. But you're not going to be able to make an uprising. I mean, maybe there's a chance to have a kind of story where a digger knob rises up. Maybe it's some kind of psyker digger knob that manages to harness like the power of the War and leads some kind of orc planet uprising, or like a Gretchen uprising led by a particularly psychic digger knob would be quite fun, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're kind of more slave, but there must be humans. There must be human populations like the hive cities on Armageddon that were captured, where they've grown up in an orc society. It's kind of all they know.
Yeah, they probably only
Um,
talk orc as well. They probably only read
yeah,
symbols and talk
yeah.
orc. But you know, you said Battlefleet Gothic's the only game that's not come back. Gorka Morka, if it ever comes
Oh
back,
yeah, yeah,
whether we
yeah,
see Digger Knobs or not, possibly not in the post woke age, but I think they were pretty cool. But what was
yeah.
even worse than that, slaves, that I remembered when I was thinking about humans in Xenos races, was the old pariah models that you used to get for the Necron.
Oh, the weird
So
ones at the
the
beginning.
weird ones. So they were like, um, they looked a bit like Terminator. They
Yeah.
didn't really look like Necrons. They looked like cyborg
What are they
humans.
human?
So they were pariahs, as in blanks. So the Necrons would round up blanks, and they would biotransference the blanks into these like Terminator bodies, so that they
All
had
right.
warp nulling soldiers on the battlefield with them. So
No, I didn't
that's
know
kind
that.
of
That's
a
yeah.
weird thing. But apparently they kind of also lost all their humanity. So as well as just being nulls, similar to the warriors, they didn't have emotions or feeling or anything like that. It was just like human consciousness with the
Right.
null gene bottled up. And there was also some weird stuff that I couldn't find any verification for online. But apparently at some point there's been an Eldar suggestion that the pariah gene was engineered into primates on old Earth at some point in history for the future, for Necrons to harness anti-warp powers after fighting the old ones. So this kind of idea that Necrons seeded something on Earth before the
What
rise of even the Emperor.
what does that mean?
Well, it means the Necrons invented the pariah gene that makes blanks and just let
Okay.
it and then went to sleep and went, okay, we've done that, let's go to sleep. Maybe when we wake up there'll be a race of people that we can transfer ourselves back into that
Oh
are
right.
also resistant to the
Oh
warp,
shit.
which is quite cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was two kind of extreme examples. And then I was looking into like the Eldar stuff. And I think like if you're going to pick a Xenos race that you can actually live with, I think the Tau
Yeah.
are going to treat you pretty better
Yeah.
than people that literally call you monkeys or
Yeah.
monkeyes every
Yeah.
day. Because
Although, do you know
Eldar hate humans.
although the you say that, but the word it kind of made me think of the Monkai because there's another word that the Tau call humans that looks the spelling in English looks a bit like gorilla, and I thought
Oh,
that was
yeah.
kind of funny. Yeah, but yeah, why?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Eldar hate humans, but do they
But it
have
must be
human?
like a rubbish place to live. Can you imagine being like the only? Imagine you were just like an ambassador human in an Eldar court, where everybody
Yeah, yeah,
around you is talking like
yeah,
80% of what they're saying's done psychically and with like small body
yeah,
gesture,
yeah,
and you're just there like, all right, mate, how's your day? And
and
they
they're tens
like
of thousands
couldn't,
of years old.
yeah, and they're
You
really
just appear for like
fast.
a flash in their lifetime. Like
Yeah,
yeah, you meet
you
completely meaningless.
not even the shit on their shoe. But there have
Yeah,
been examples of people, humans that did get on with Eldar. Ravenor, as in Gideon Ravenor, Eisenhorn's kind of
yeah.
protege. He spent some time studying with them, but I think that's because he's such a powerful psychic. I think if you manage to get to a psychic level of understanding, you can probably chill with the Eldar pretty well.
Mm.
You imagine Araman could sit down and have a conversation with Eldrad, and it wouldn't be too taxing for either of them.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
Araman's not,
yeah, yeah,
but there was no like there was Dark Eldar have lots of human slaves, but they seem to have really bad lives, so I don't think they're gonna
yeah. I don't
uprise
think that
anywhere.
really. Yeah, I don't
I
think
just
that.
think Eldar just couldn't be fucked. Even if they could have a planet under their control, I'm not sure they're bothered. I think the Exodites piss around with humans. The
I still.
Corsairs
I
do with
think.
like rogue traders and stuff, but
I think we sort of touched on it recently. Did we do an Eldar episode recently? We did, didn't we?
we've done
I think
loads
we
more
mentioned
than we
it.
ever thought we would.
The I still like the idea that the Eldar, like if there was a human population on a craft world, I mean it's not non-imperial aligned, but I think that the Eldar would almost let the humans stay there. If the Eldar were hidden,
Hmm.
then in a way the human population is just like a human meat shield.
Yeah, that's
It's just a
true.
human shield.
Like,
So why get rid of them? Just let them stay there.
because there's so few Eldar in comparison to humans,
Yeah,
I suppose you could
let
look at it like
them
that.
let them die.
But I do think the lore is kind of. I mean, Gilliman banging an Eldar and Khan banging two Dark Eldar aside. Um, I think the lore is kind of writing itself into a hole where the only way for humanity to get out of the hole is to have Eldar team ups happen more often. Like
Yeah.
there is so much against them now. The warp is going nuts and increasing by the day. The Tyranid masses are increasing by the day. They're not really doing anything to stop the Tau expanding, although they're minimal threat in
But the
my
lion
eyes.
came back.
Yeah. And he's probably going to end up banging an Eldar. I do think we're
Yeah.
going to see more of that kind of relationship between the two, which I think is quite fun to explore. Like I say, that kind of weird like talking to the Flash. There's loads of cool stuff with the Flash and Superman and stuff, how their brains work so much faster that they're just bored talking to
Mm,
humans. Doctor
yeah.
Manhattan's another example. Like there's some fun stuff they could do with that kind of allegiance that I think could be interesting.
Yeah. But as for other non-human population, it's hard, yeah, it's hard to really believe that they're out there by 40K. By
Yeah,
40K.
sure.
The only one thinking about it, um, being technically Imperial aligned could be like a Forge World that's out there, or like the giant um tech priest ships. I can't remember what they're called. The Arc Mechanicus. There's some of those out there, kind of nearly the size of a craft world. Um, yeah, or a Forge World.
Yeah, I think
That
it's way more likely
might
that there's
be.
unaligned Mechanicum, if we're counting Mechanicum as still human, than there is
Yeah,
unaligned human.
yeah.
Just because the Mechanicum are way more powerful to start with when they start going out.
And I think they have enough of a religious zeal to protect them from chaos and the other stuff out there. Like you kind of need that faith, be it in the Emperor or be it, in in the Mechanicus
So you're
machine
saying
god.
uh, uh, well, there's a name for them, isn't it? I can't remember their name, but the acolytes of something or other. But you're talking Mechanicum that believe the Omnissiah isn't the Emperor and isn't Chaos, but
Or
is its own entity.
literally don't even know about the Emperor. They've been
Oh,
cut
right.
off, and they still are pure machine god. But they have enough faith in their own system that protects
Yeah.
them from chaos. Like I, th- I think it's so hard to imagine a another human civilization that hasn't been either fallen to chaos or utterly crushed by the Imperium or somebody else. Um, but the tech priests on a Forge world, there's probably enough, there's enough to preoccupy them with their own faith that protects them from all the shit in the galaxy, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
definitely. Well, that
Yeah,
was a small blast through humans in the 41st millennium outside of Imperial control. Do you want one very quick Lords of Law question, Matt, to round
yeah,
up in our small blast?
yeah.
Okay, here we go. This was a question Auspex asked. What do you enjoy most about the 40K hobby? There were 3,000 responses. The options were lore, painting, gameplay, or other. In order, please.
I actually think it's in that order.
That's what you're going with.
Yeah.
It is in that order. Well
Oh,
done.
wow. Yeah. Yeah.
39% of people said that lore is their favorite thing about 40K,
Yeah.
which is great to me. It means that if GW are actually doing surveys of this kind, which you'd assume their marketing department do,
Yeah.
they would know that when they're doing things like this big series, there's a lot of people that care about the lore, like
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Although you might
Yeah.
not know it from our
Yeah.
30-minute run through of humans. And
Nice.
then painting and gameplay were exactly the same, 28%.
Oh,
So,
that's interesting. That doesn't
yeah.
surprise me though. Yeah.
No, I think we're on board with that as well, to be honest. Well, I am.
Yeah.
Well, we'll ask Stony next episode what he
Painting
thinks.
is like the thing I just do, but the lore always gets me back into the painting. It's the lore that's
The
the
Lord that
thing that
sucks you
keeps
in.
me doing it. Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Well, let's hope they
Yeah.
don't dilute that like they do some of the models. All
Yeah.
right. See you later, folks.
Nice
Say goodbye,
one.
Matt.
Goodbye, Matt.
Goodbye, Welshy.